What's up, everyone? This is Devin with Amateur Life. We got a special guest in-house. We got Dakota Harris, who just finished 5th at the 59th Annual Eagle River World Championships for sled snowmobiles. It was ice oval, whatever you want to call it. Let's say, what's the technical term for you guys? What do you just say?
Just, when we go, we normally just call it the World Championship.
Just World Champs?
They call it, the 59th World Championship at Eagle River, stuff like that.
So, no, the new World Champ, they have the F3 sleds that they're doing, or F3 class that's running the World Champs. So, this was kind of the first year for that, right?
Yep. They've had the class the last 2 years, I believe, and this year would be the first year as the actual World Championship class.
Yeah. No, it's cool, and definitely, I think it's an easier entry point to get into now than versus the 440s, I'd say, almost, because you almost got to have someone already set up with one of those sleds, don't you, with the 440s versus this?
Yeah, in a way. I mean, you can probably find one of them 440 motors, but they're like 12 to 14 years old, so trying to find one can be pretty hard. And then
getting parts, too.
Yeah, you got to get parts. Parts can be hard. I know a lot of them guys that are already in the champ class. They have a lot of these parts.
Yeah.
And, then you got to find a chassis, get a chassis belt, stuff like that. So
yeah. So, it's really to the point where you got to, either know someone that's in it, to kind of help get you this stuff and stuff like that. It'd be hard to start from scratch and get into it that way.
Yeah.
So
I think so personally, but I know a lot of champ guys, they think differently with it. A champ sled, and it's just the opportunity came to get an F3 and we took it. So.
Yeah. Now, you guys got hooked up with Polaris this year, right? That's kind of how you got into it?
Yeah, in a way. So originally with the F3 sled, we were looking for a sled to get turned into an enduro sled.
Yeah.
And we came to a spot, or we found, it was Countryside. They had an F3 sled they were selling 2019, I believe. And we found a sponsor, and he actually paid for it. So we had an F3 sled in our shop, ready to go, and we were ready to turn it into an enduro sled. Then we sent out an application to Polaris Racing, and they came back and they accepted it. So we decided to buy a brand new Polaris sled and turn that into the enduro, and kept the F3 as an F3 sled. So
nice. So I guess we'll kind of take this back kind of before this weekend, and we'll get back into kind of, so who and how, did you get into the snowmobile racing,
Well, so I got into snowmobile racing, I think, when I was 12 years old, and it was kind of like my dad asked me to go ride a sled they bought. It was a 300 Yamaha, whatever, and through Mark Pitcher. He bought it. He needed someone to ride it. My dad said I could in the junior class, so went out and did some practice laps on it, liked it, and the next day I think we went racing, actually.
Yeah.
So that's kind of where it all started.
Now, you started right here in Lakeview, where we're all from, basically. Well, you guys are just a little north, Morley areas where you guys live, but, back when they were out on the lake and stuff, right?
Yep. My first race was actually on the lake, and the next year they actually moved it to the land track. So.
Yeah. No, yeah, that's nice to have the land track, too, just, to get a little bit more races in, because I always remember years of them trying to run those races and not being able to get them in, so.
Right, yep.
So I guess, what was your first big win moment, whether you want to say win or whether you just want to say remember a moment where you did really well or something? Do you have something that stands out in your mind?
There's probably a couple of them that really stand out the most. And, the first one is probably the first race I ever did. We went out there. I took like a third in the heat race. And I remember who I was actually racing against. It was Trent Johnson. He was on a 340, and I was on the 300. We went out in the final. I ended up taking first, and, it kind of took everyone by shock. They didn't expect me to do that. And that was one of the bigger, moments for the team. And I'd have to say it was 4 years ago. We got a brand new Troy Pierce chassis for the vintage weekend. It was a 440 Supermod, and that was the first year I really got into the world championship. And actually, we wanted to compete, one of those things. And we went there and I think we took in 7th or 8th out of the 40 sleds that were there for the world championship. So that was another big moment for the team and for myself, I would say.
Yeah. Oh, so Is there kind of a moment that would stand out that may be the worst point? Have you had any bad injuries from this so far, or?
I actually haven't had any bad injuries, knock on wood, yet. So,
Knock on the table there.
Yeah, we haven't had any bad injuries yet. We've always had some bad races and bad luck at Eagle River, and there's been a few races
How many motors have you blown up?
Our teams went through a lot of motors at Eagle River, sadly. Yep. But nothing too horrible really for the team, as a team anyway, and for myself, I'd say.
Yeah. So, I guess let's kind of run through. You started off with, by the sounds of it, like the vintage series, and then kind of transition now to you still run vintage, but you also run the new stuff. So, let's kind of talk. That transition from vintage, starting in vintage, going to the pros, and kind of the process that you had to go through to do that all. So, I guess you used to just mainly run Bebra.
Yep.
And now and then you guys started Myra up with the vintage stuff, correct?
Yeah, we did. The first time we ran Myra was still with vintage.
Yep.
So.
Yep. And then was it a team that approached you that helped you get into the enduro stuff and the pro stuff, or was it you guys just going out on your own with it? I guess how'd that all work for you?
So we started out with the vintage stuff, and I ran a lot of races doing vintage, and then the Wisners actually told us all about this Myra stuff. And so, we wanted to try it out. So we did, I think, one race, which was the last race of the year at Myra, and we loved the track. And I actually helped, it was WV Racing. I helped them in the pits with their second sled that they were running. And they came to me during one of our meetings, I believe, and they asked me to run their semi-pro. So they have a semi-pro class. It's a mini enduro, which is only, I think, 25 laps. And so they had a sled that I'd run, and they brought it to every race, and they actually helped us a lot during that season. And so if you win points during the semi-pro year, it actually bumps you up to be a pro enduro racer. So that's kind of how, I guess, through another team, and we just kind of hearing about it. And so, yeah, now we're here. We're in the pro enduro stuff. So
Yep. So I guess with just as we're talking, we'll get into kind of what sled you're particularly running. But I guess explain because some of the people I know that might watch this or see this, might be either just getting into the whole snowmobile stuff. So I guess what's the difference between like the vintage stuff, the semi-pro, like how many laps, you're just saying 25 laps roughly, and then kind of some of the new and then the enduro, so I guess differentially, like when you race a vintage class, how many laps are you typically doing on the ice and stuff?
So vintage, you can do anywhere. Normally we do like 3 lap heats, and then we do a 5 lap final, and then you get into the world championship, like for the Supermod 440s, which we've been running. They do normally like a 3 lap heat, a 5 lap semifinal, and the world championship is normally 10 laps. So that's not, for most enduro guys, that's not too bad to run 10 laps, which the way the sleds are set up for vintage is a lot different. So it could be a lot harder. Yeah. It's a lot, I guess what we would say, it's a lot tighter to go around a corner. Instead of the enduro, we're a little bit looser. Yeah. So it's easier on the body, I guess. But then you get into the semi-pro, which is 25 laps, which ain't too bad. Depending on, they changed the whole rule with what sled you can ride, and the one I was on was a Gen 2, and it's a Mod 600, and though that was a little tighter than what you normally run for enduro, so a lot of people could only run so many laps and then needed a break, on those, and so it depends on, some of the people can only run so many laps, I guess, but the semi-pro is always 25 laps, and the enduros, so Eagle River is actually 100 laps, and then the rest of the year for Myra is 250.
Yep. Now, how big of tracks are you typically running?
For the Myra, it's half-mile tracks.
Half-mile?
And they're big, they're fast, they're fun. Yep. I always tell everyone they need to go out to one of the races and just race it one time.
Yeah.
So,
what type of speeds are you talking? Definitely with the enduro stuff.
So the enduro stuff, it can be anywhere from mid-90s to maybe 100 mile an hour in some of these half-mile tracks. I know for sure, I think we can hit 100 and probably one of the tracks. But then you talk about the Suai 500, which we might get into tonight or not, but that's a mile track, 500 laps, and the the fastest I think they went 2 years ago was around the 120, I think, down the straightaway. So,
yep. Let's kind of see my questions. I guess what sleds are you as in Harris Racing? What sleds do you guys have right now?
So we've got 3 vintage sleds right now. 2 of them are the Starfire Supermod 440s, and we have a true Starfire 340 that is a super stock class that we had some troubles with this year. And, we had trouble with my Supermod and my super stock this year, the motor-wise, trying to get it to run right. But that's just, we didn't have a lot of test time before going out to Eagle River, so, you know, it's hard to get everything tuned in right.
Yeah, being in central Michigan here, you don't get ice too early. Definitely when you're starting first of the year right out with Eagle River, you kind of gotta go north and still dealing with COVID stuff. You can't go to Canada right now to go run, so it makes it kind of hard.
It does.
So kind of going into Eagle River, you kicked off this year with the vintage weekend out there, and that's kind of how they normally start it, correct?
Yep, they normally do the vintage. We had, I think they said 1,000 entries, which is way more than they've had in a long time.
Yeah.
And like I said, we just didn't have a lot of time to test beforehand.
Yeah.
So
I guess what were some of the biggest struggles when you guys got out there, with the sled and stuff like that?
So with my super stock 340 sled, we actually got the motor Thursday morning, which was practice day.
Yep.
So we're throwing the motor in, and I got on my 440 and went and did our 2-lap practice, and I noticed towards the end of the straightaway it had like this little backfire in it, and so when I got off, I told my dad and my grandpa, which they're our pit masters, and they just figured we needed to rejet it, so we'd rejet it, and I never got it on the 340, so we didn't know what it was going to do. We didn't know what that was going to do at all.
Yeah.
And so we went into Friday into our heat races kind of blinded. We didn't know what the 340 was going to do, and we got out there, and the sled just had a real bad, I guess like a bog in the start.
Yep.
And coming on the corners, it just didn't want to go. We had like no power there, and we were low on ours, so I ended up making it into the semi-final race.
Yep.
Surprisingly, and so we made a lot of changes to try to help, and we made some progress, but we still weren't there. We were still lacking what we needed at the start and coming out of the corner. So we didn't make it in the final of that, and we had the Friday night Thunder for the Supermod, and we got out there to race it, and we didn't have any races on it. We just had practice Thursday. We didn't have any races, so we got out there to race Friday night Thunder for the first heat race, and came to corner 4 where the flagman would bring us down for the start.
Yep.
And the sled actually flooded itself, so I couldn't even race the Friday night Thunder at all.
Okay.
So we had a lot of struggle there, and then Saturday I had another race with 340, and we still couldn't find what we needed, so we couldn't make the final. And the 440 was the race to get into the World Cup. We made a lot of changes there, and we still didn't find what we were looking for, so finally we changed carburetors. And it's like the motor woke up a little bit, but then it was too late. We didn't have a whole shot. We didn't have the handling because we couldn't actually
get the motor going to be able to start messing with fine-tuning how it's going to ride.
Right. So, and then Sunday they do the last chance, and a couple people backed out, so they actually asked me to go do it. And we weren't ready. We didn't think we thought we were done, so we hurried up, got the sled going. We didn't even get to do any tuning on what we wanted to do to it. So we go out there. I got a good hole shot, actually. And I was sitting in like 3rd, and a couple guys wrecked, and coming into 1. So we had to restart, and I had a bad hole shot, and everything felt good. I was sitting in like 4th, I think, and they're taking top 2. And coming out of 2, my throttle cable actually came off. So a lot of people weren't happy with what I did, but instead of pulling off to the side and let the race continue, I wanted to keep racing.
Yep.
So I kind of sat down low enough to where they'd red flag it and we'd restart. So I put the throttle cable back on. We restarted the race. I had another bad hole shot. I don't know why we've been struggling, but we've been struggling out with that.
Do you think it's track related? Not enough track?
Uh,
Because I know
it
you're always
could
you're always battling that. Whether
Yep.
you need to put more track down to get the whole shot, but then you're gonna
Yep.
push bad in the corner.
Right.
Or so
And it could be that. It could be, our suspension could be too soft or too stiff,
Yeah.
And we're still trying to figure that out with that sled because
Yeah.
it's still a newer sled to us.
Yeah.
And so I got a bad hole shot coming out of the corner, and the motor did not want to run at all. It was just sit there popping all the way down the straightaway, and so I just finished the race off, and we called it a weekend.
Yeah.
And we watched the finals for it, and it was a good race. Matt Gady took it home. He normally does, but it was a good race to watch.
Yeah. Now in between, you stayed out there all week. Did you get any chance to go test at all while you were out there, or no?
Yeah, we did actually. We had some of our good friends there. They're actually the bartenders in our hot seats for the vintage and the pro weekend. They had a lake that they had a buddy plow, Travis, and he did great. He did great. They let us go out Wednesday, so we got a lot of testing on our F3 sled and our enduro sled.
Yeah.
And we got everything. I was happy with the F3 sled when we tested. I put a lot of laps on it, and then we got on the enduro sled and made some laps to where we thought it would be really close, for qualifying, and we can make adjustments,
Yep.
So,
All right, so let's go into the pro weekend and enduro weekend. I guess starting off with Friday night. Was that just practice? Was that time qualifying? What was that Friday night?
well, Friday morning we had qualifying
Qualifying.
for the World Championship, and
Okay.
then Friday night was Friday Night Thunder, which is like a whole different race.
Yep.
But the winner actually, it's same with vintage, but the winner actually gets top pole, sets
Pole.
the pole, I guess, for the World Championship on
Okay.
Sunday. So
Okay. So what goes on Saturday? Is that race to qualify in then?
yeah, so you qualify Friday morning for Worlds, and then Saturday you race to get in, and they take the top 10. They normally do a last chance, and they take 2 from the last chance race, and they start them in the back row.
Okay.
So, but this year we had a guy back out that was in the top 10. So they actually let the other 3 guys that were in the last chance just start back row.
Okay.
So everyone that signed up got to actually race pretty much the Worlds.
All right. Going into then Sunday, run the actual Worlds and then enduro. I guess how'd that go? For you?
So Sunday for the Worlds, we are always 50-50 with our whole shot. And unfortunately, Blaine Stevenson, he had problems with his sled. And so when I did get a decent hole shot when I was up in the pack, he didn't move. So then we had a red flag. So, which, whatever, it happens to some of us, and it sucks because we were hoping to have him out there race against him. But
Because he's the only one that won that before, right?
he is a 4-time world championship and the champ sleds.
On the champ sleds.
Yep, and he's raced F3s last year and this year, and he's fast. He's hard to compete with, really. But unfortunately, just the sled didn't want to work Sunday for the finals.
Yeah, it kept cutting out, and I remember watching.
And it's the new EFI motor is what he's got, so I'm sure it had to do something maybe with the fueling system. I don't know.
Yeah.
I didn't hear much about it. So, but getting back to the race, we had a restart, and I spun out the whole start, so I was in dead last, and I worked my way up to 4th, and we had a red flag for someone wrecked in turn 3 and 4, I believe. So, or no, I was in 5th, and someone wrecked. He had to start in the back, and I was in 4th. So then I had a decent hole shot, and I was battling, I was right there with the top 3 guys, just battling with them, and then we had another restart, and I actually spun out again. And so then I was in the back of the pack, worked my way up to 5th, finally got around 5th, and I believe I got up, started battling again with 3rd place when I was in 4th, and started battling. Well, I made the mistake to race in the bumps the whole race, and some of us sprint guys know that that's not the way to go. And I stayed out of the dirt for the most part for my carbide, but I just didn't stay out of the bumps.
Yeah.
So I think the last maybe 7 laps, I could really tell it was taking a toll on my left arm. And so I slowed down a bit, and I stayed out of the bumps for a little bit. And I was in 4th, so I was pretty happy with where I was at. and the yellow flag. I was coming around 4 actually. The white flag, sorry, white flag was out coming around 4, and I had the town bros there, the town brothers, number 2, Skidoo, went flying by me, and I was in for 4th place. Didn't know he was there, and so I was getting the white flag, and I was a little upset. So I tried, getting him back at the last lap, but I was just so tired the last lap that I just took the 5th place, and I was happy with it. We did good, and I was really happy actually with the outcome. I was more shocked than anything because I didn't expect to go first time ever running an F3 sled in a race at the World Championship and taking 5th place in the Sweet 16 and in the World Championship. So it's pretty big.
Yeah. How much ice did you guys? Because you guys were down to dirt before they even started. How much ice was there to start?
So vintage weekend.
Yep.
They had 10 inches, maybe a little more than 10 inches.
Yep.
And vintage, there were so many sleds there, you just go through the ice. And I know a lot of these guys, the pro guys, they hate that vintage is the first weekend, but in all reality, I just look at, the vintage, they're not really built to go through the bumps as much as these champ sleds, the F3s and the Enduros are built to do. So I don't mind, going through a little bit of bumps here and there. Yep. But I think from what I heard, they had we went through some ice for vintage weekend. There were some good bumps, but we didn't go through much ice, I heard, from what I heard anyway. But we did get down to dirt. I think by Saturday night we were in dirt. Yeah. So
now because you had on your Snapchat there the bikes running.
Yep.
And do they race every night? Do they have a whole series they're doing out there too, or?
I think so. I don't know.
Or is it just like an intermission thing type?
Yeah, it's kind of like one of those. They just do it for Friday night, just to give them a show for Friday night. Okay. I think is what it is. And they're really cool to watch. They're really fast. I thought it was awesome to sit there and watch them go around.
Now, I don't know if they try to lay down any more ice over top of that stuff. I don't know if they run water at night or not. But I've heard before that snowmobilers hate bikes on the ice because it puts such a groove that your sled will fall into those from those bikes running. Do you guys see that at all when you're coming out there Saturday? Did you notice it at all?
From me, in my experience of racing, I've never had a real problem with bikes, I guess, in their grooves. And I guess I couldn't tell at all, Saturday night or Sunday that there was any grooves from them at all. And I think a lot of it is because I don't think they run the same line every time. If you watch them, they're always in a different line. But, the one person might run the same line the whole race, but there's never someone behind them in the same groove. Yeah. So I think that helps a lot, but I don't ever notice it.
Yeah. Like I said, I didn't know if they threw down any ice. Do they do water?
Yeah, they try to water as much as they can throughout the night, even during the weekend. Yeah. It all depends on the humidity. Yeah. And sometimes they can, get 2 truckloads dumped, or sometimes they can get 5. Yeah. Some nights they can have it to where the ice freezes right behind them when they lay it down. Yeah. Some nights they don't, and they run over water. Yeah. They come back around, so just depends.
I'm sure it's hard on the track crews and stuff because you're dealing with weather, you're dealing with a lot of stuff. So
Yep.
Kind of that's really all the questions I had for you. I guess who are, sponsors you want to thank and for getting you here and stuff?
The sponsors I can think of right now, I didn't really write any of these down or nothing, but we got Troy Pierce Racing, we got the Polaris Racing, the McKenna Family Racing. They were the big group for the F3 that we have. We got Flannery Motorsports there. We got Mickey Sleds, Mike Winnett there. Sorry if I didn't pronounce that right, but he's the motor guy for Super Mods. I'm sure we got Nelson Speed Shop Lakeside. They're another big group right there for us, and I'm sure I'm missing a couple of them, but I'll be able to post them on Facebook here soon too. So
yeah, I know you guys are good. The whole Harris Racing crew is good about posting and keeping us updated and stuff when you guys are out running and stuff like that. So so you got Myra you're running, so we got off this weekend, but then Gaylord the 29th and 30th. And then
actually, and the weekend after Gaylord is the Sioux I-500.
Now, are you running that this year?
I think so. I think I plan on running that with Nick Wickerham.
Okay.
We'll see how it goes. We're still kind of up in the air right now, but we're probably 75% sure that I might be running as a second driver. So.
Okay. So you gonna ride his sled, or you bring your own, or you bring
Well,
yours as a backup, or
No, we'll be running his stuff.
His
so, with his team that he's got lined up for it. So we'll just be mainly showing up and getting on someone else's sled. And running it.
Yep. And then Kinross on February 12th and 13th, and then Lincoln February 19th and 20th.
Yep, that seems about right to me.
And then you said you might try to hit up some Bever races in Lakeview, Michigan, kind of and in between the weekends probably, or, if they're running, sometimes they run some late ones, so you might be able to jump over there for the vintage stuff.
Yeah.
No, well, thank you for coming in, and, congratulations on the 5th and the F3, and hopefully get some stuff figured out, and we'll be ready to watch you for these next few races and stuff coming up.
Tune in to Flow Racing, and you guys can watch it, and I appreciate you having me out here, so thank you.